mentioned before, Messier 31 is co-regent galaxy. Oh, look at the distance. All right, co-regent galaxy to the Milky Way. So I had remembered that M31 was some 2.5 million light years distant, but this database is showing it 3.4. So those other galaxies that I mentioned as being further away satellite galaxies, according to this database, are actually nearer to the Milky Way galaxy. My mistake. But I'd have to do more research because there's lots of variations in distance data. But there shouldn't be as many problems with nearby galaxies such as M31 because in very large telescopes using longer exposure times, you can resolve stars that have a fixed magnitude so you can determine the distance. These could be Cepheid variables, RR Lyrae variables, the rate at which they pulsate, and the brightness and dimness which they achieve at their maximum and minimum tell you something about the intrinsic luminosity. So this database is saying M31 is 3.54 million light years distance. It is huge, 3 degrees by 1 degree. So there's no way it's going to fit onto this screen. So we're going to have to spend some time, if not this evening, in the future, sweeping this galaxy to the various directions to be able to get a sense of it. Okay, what I'm seeing immediately is we are definitely masking out the very core of the galaxy. It's just way too bright. We're also getting some imagery of very dark lanes, and within that lane, located down here, you can see regions that are actually textured regions of dark nebulosity. We are looking at the very core of the galaxy, and no, that is not a black hole in its center. Now notice the degree of detail. Look at this, dark nebulosity. Now all of this region here is just the beginning of the spiral arms. It's the part of the galaxy that is only beginning to, the very core of the galaxy, as we saw in that NGC earlier. And now you can see going out into the distances are the various spiralicities that comprise the galaxy as a whole. So this is the core. It's perfectly centered. I could play with settings and see if I can get rid of that masking region in the middle of the galaxy, and I will do that. But let's, if this camera does not run out of battery before I'm done this evening, but let's take a sweep. I'm going to randomly move the galaxy 5 clicks, which basically moved, from what I can tell, it to the 630 position. Now you can see the image beginning to regenerate itself. So I'm going to let it do it, and I'm going to come back to it and move it 10 clicks in the opposite direction. As I was saying, we're going to move on to M32, another satellite galaxy of M31. It's in Andromeda. Magnitude 8.1, 8.5 by 6.5 arc minutes in size. I've never seen it that large. It always looked like a smallish globular cluster at the eyepiece. 3 million light years distant, which also puts it basically beyond the M31 galaxy itself. So declination 40 degrees. This should not be any difficulties. Did not have to move far. You can see the image formulating on the screen. Oh, so bright that the core is being masked by the CCD imager. Something I'll have to play with in the future. But you can see why I might think that it was a globular cluster at the eyepiece very easily. There are some wispy extensions, especially to the 6 o'clock position. In fact, as I line my head up better and better, which is not easy with the screen, I am seeing more and more of the extensions of this galaxy. You can understand why you might assume this galaxy would be a globular cluster, but you'll notice as brilliant as it is, there's no really resolved stars anywhere on the outside of its perimeter. And you wouldn't expect to be able to do so, because you would have to have some pretty bright stars to be able to, 15th magnitude stars at 3 million light years would have to be of some tremendous intrinsic brilliance. In fact, most stars that you can ever find through a smaller telescope such as this, even using imagers in galaxies, tend to be noble displays, not resolved components of the galaxies themselves. Notice there's a slightly oval presentation to this M32 galaxy, satellite galaxy M31. All right, on to the main show, which we're not going to be able to fit in the screen, but we'll do the best we can to sweep it.
Time's now about 5:45. This is the best view I've had of Messier 110 in probably 3 weeks. The main reason being the weather, but also the fact that there's also been the moon cycle, which is now over, so the lunacy is past. Now the interesting thing is, if there's any atmospheric water up there and any light cast on that atmospheric water, especially by the moon or by local light sources, you really lose everything but the very core of Messier 110. So this is kind of a bellwether of, if you want to do a tour of the M31 family, you need to get a view at least as good as this. And it's about 5:45 right now, so we haven't quite entered into full sky dark. So I'm impressed. It's very promising that I'll be able to get the panorama done this evening. So I'm going to go ahead and mount the camera on the camera yoke so that I can get a series of images of the same proportion to match up. So that's going to be my next step. But that is looking quite good, actually. Not quite as good as it was 3 weeks ago, but very good. At Messier 110.
Okay, Messier 66, not too far from 65, Galaxy in Leo, magnitude 8.9, a little brighter and very edge-on, 1 by 4.1 arc minutes, not as large, 35 million light years distance, maybe at best a super dwarf galaxy.
And we have our view right there. You can see the spiral arms going off to the 3 o'clock position. Looking a little larger than I expected at 4 arc minutes on the major dimension. Yeah, that does seem to be a little larger than 4 arc minutes. Once again, a brilliant core with some extensions going off like a bar, extended core region. You can see some nebulosity in it. Certainly a spiral-esque shape to it, going off to the 3 and 9 o'clock positions. Yeah, very nice. And on a clear, more transparent, stable night, we would probably start to see some really serious H2 regions, which are hinted at in this image, etc. to ogle at. Anyway, there's our view of Messier 66.
Okay, we're on to a pair of Messiers, Messier 65 and 66, down near the hindquarters of Leo the Lion. Galaxy magnitude 9.3, 9 by 2.3 arc minutes, 35 million light years distant. This might be a Milky Way sized galaxy, given its dimensions and distance. Let's have our look.
Clearly a semi-edge-on spiral galaxy, Messier 65. We're not getting much definition to it tonight, because you can tell by all the smearing going on. So not the best view, but perhaps the best galaxy we've seen this evening. It'd be nice if we could get a sense of dark lane, any kind of definition in it, but looking at those stars and how they're washing out, there's very little definition in them. I am seeing a bit of dark obscuration nebula off in this position over here where it's being slightly truncated, and on the other side there. So there may be an inner ring and an outer spiral that's shooting around the outside of it. Nice large view on a better night with clearer skies and maybe sharper focus and a little less moon wash and a little less atmospheric haze. It should be quite a beauty. Look how round and spherical the core of the galaxy is. That's quite impressive. I rarely ever see them look so globular-esque in their cores. Anyway, SEA 65 and nearby SEA 66 next on the docket.
Here's a galaxy I remember from my 6-inch observing days 20 years ago, NGC 3628, a galaxy in Leo. It's very close, forms like a triangular relationship with 65 and 66. Magnitude 9.5, very extensive, 13 by 0.1 by 3.1 arc minutes. It's a barred spiral of the lesser distinction, 32 million light years distant. Giving its size, I would say it may be pretty close to our own galaxy in size, super dwarf or perhaps a sub-average size galaxy. You can see the dark bar off, splitting the galaxy in half with the brighter part to the 9 o'clock position and the fainter region off to the 3, practically vertical. There is hints of H2 region. Galaxy does shoot quite a ways off in various directions. I can pretty much hints at covering more than 2/3 of the screen, top to bottom. This is quite a fetching view of a galaxy, almost up to NGC 891 standard in terms of its aesthetic appeal, but slightly turned on its side, which doesn't give that really strong edge-on appearance by splitting the galaxy perfectly in half like an 891. But that is a lovely view, and I'm looking forward to calculating its actual size, which I suspect will be somewhere above 75,000 light years. But we'll have to wait until I run the numbers on tomorrow. Once again, a beauty, NGC 3628 in Leo, very close to M56 and 65 and 66. Well, to recap, it's about 45 minutes later. It takes that long for the battery for this handheld to recharge. Back at M95, which we saw earlier, galaxy in Leo, magnitude 9.7, 7.3 by 4.4 arc minutes, 38 million light years distant, kind of a smallish galaxy. You can see the spiral arms. I've come to the conclusion that the atmospherics tonight are pretty poor, especially with the moon up there. We're getting lots of water vapor in the air, and it's kind of losing contrast. So we're not quite getting the views I got previously, plus the moon is complicating the picture by washing the sky with a little bit more luminosity than we might want. So here's our review of Messier 95, and you can see the spiral arms ringing round about the extended bar of the galaxy, which is pretty much a face-on galaxy. Let's go ahead and have a look at Messier 96 as well. And the information regarding Messier 96, galaxy in Leo, magnitude 9.3. Kind of oblate, 7.8 by 5.2 arc minutes, 38 million light years distant. Probably a super dwarf galaxy. I'll give you the values on that tomorrow when I have a chance to calculate them. So here's a view of the galaxy. Slightly oblate. You can see the spiral arms around the outside. Image is a little washed out. Hoping that the stars will start to shape up here in a little bit. We're basically taking in 9-second exposures of
everything tonight because we're operating at 128 flood. Oh, that's getting a little nicer. There's our view. Messier 96. Carpe knocked him out with NGC 891. I've already given a view of this under post full moon conditions. I think it was 1 or 2 days after the full moon. It's a Galaxy in Andromeda, one of my favorites, because unlike 74 and 77 in the Triangulum Galaxy, this baby gives you a view edge on. It's large, 13 by 2.8 arc minutes, a spiral galaxy, 29 million light years distant. And this is the view we're getting tonight. And I've had a better view. Frankly, I'm discovering I do not like imaging with the camera when I'm facing west. For some reason, the screen gives a very poor view vis-a-vis the camera when the telescope completely flips over. But there you can see the edge-on galaxy. The dark band isn't quite as high contrast as it was in that earlier view, but it is a nice comparison view to what I've had earlier under moonish conditions during the lunacy. And it gives us an idea of what you might expect to see. Now I have to point out, part of the aperture may be blocked by the roof at this point, but not very much. But this is one of my most memorable galaxies that I love viewing. It's an Andromeda very close to Perseus, edge on, NGC 891. And so with that, I'm going to say Carpe Noctem and knock off for the evening. Thank you for participating. I enjoy sharing all of these studies to the degree that I get a good view of them with fellow astrobuds. Carpe Noctem. Okay, our first Messier of the evening, Messier 105, a galaxy in Leo, magnitude 9.3, largish, 5.3 by 4.8, means pretty much face on. It's not claiming any particular style. It's only 38 million light years distant, so it's not particularly large, probably smaller than our own Milky Way, maybe somewhere in the 60 to 70,000 light year diameter range. And here is our view of the galaxy. Right in the center of the screen. It may have a companion up further north, but that's interesting. So here's our view. Scanned it a little bit. Camera down, so now the luminosity is flat pretty much, but we don't quite see as much of the faint detail when I do that. Messier 105 on your galactic dial. Our next study is drifting a little bit away from culmination now. It's NGC 14, Galaxy in Pegasus. Magnitude 12.1, 2.8 by 2.1. It's a little bit fainter, but about the same size as NGC 7448. 39 million light years distant compared to 7448, which was about 100. I would expect this to turn up fairly well, but it may, looking at it, it looks a little bit smudgy to my eye, so, but I'll show you where it is. The galaxy is located right about there on the screen, so let's see if I can sweep. Ah, yeah, I can make it out on the handheld camera. Yeah. It just gently, subtly brightens towards the core and extends off a little bit towards the left and right the way I'm holding the camera. So there's our view of NGC 7. NGC 14, I do believe I've captured this through a 6-inch telescope in really good sky conditions optically. So there's our view. Let's head out and see what else we can turn up this evening. Well, after synchronizing to Messier 74 on the alignment, we go to off to NGC 660, Galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 11.2, very large, 8 by almost 3 arc minutes. It's a spiral, class B, capital B AP, 41 million light years distant. And you can see it right there in the center of the screen. Looks a little distended to my eye. Based on the size of it, it should be more or less oblate presentation. So we're seeing spiral extensions going off to the upper left, maybe the 10 o'clock and the 4 o'clock positions. At magnitude 11, I would expect it to be a little better than this, but this has been a fairly disappointing night in terms of being able to make out faint detail. NGC 660. Okay, actually I had it set on 16 flood, so seeing the galactic core at 16 flood was basically the same image you might get through a 6-inch telescope optically. This is M74, it's a galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 9.4, very large, 10 by 9.4 arc minutes, 35 million light years distant, and we are seeing spiralicity here on the screen, which is blowing me away because I have not seen this for quite a while. Even though there is a pretty advanced moon, the sky has somehow changed. Something has changed to allow me now to actually begin to see the kind of faint detail in the galaxy. Look at those spiral arms shooting off in every direction. This is practically a face-on spiral galaxy. And look at the spiralicity. I am very impressed. And there is, of course, that moon. And it is pretty cold tonight. Not as cold as it was last night. I got out for a little bit last night, but it was like 10 degrees out, so I bailed. But here we go, M74. Let's have a look at 77 before we return to the M33. I am impressed, and it isn't even quite dark yet, and there's a moon. Zowie. Had to flip it the equatorial again. Going after NGC 772, Galaxy in Aries, magnitude 10.3, fairly large, 7.5 by 4.3 arc minutes. It's a spiral, a small class B. I think that means barred. It's at 110 million light years, so this is a little more distant than M74 and 77. And you can see the bright core right there in the center of the screen, plus some extensions. But it doesn't really have that much in the way of detail. Once again, centering it right just above the dark bar of contrast on the screen, we get our best view. So there's our look. On to other things that I should have caught when the weather was better, if the weather had been better over the last month or two. M74 was instructed by the observatory, so I've returned to my culminating studies. NGC 1832 is a galaxy in Lepus. Its magnitude 11.3. It's smaller than the previous one, which I believe was 1964. 2.3 by 1.5 arc minutes. It's a barred spiral with a ring, 85 million light years distant. And I can see it on the screen. It's fairly small, located right there near the center, so the alignment's pretty good tonight. That's our view, and it does have a bit of a ring about it. So happily, we're getting a pretty decent night sky. Yeah, I can see the ring even from my off angle here. So let's see if I can position it just right. So you can get the optimal view right there on the border of the dark bar on the screen. Yes, indeed. So we are seeing galaxies tonight. Some of the icing and haze is being eliminated. The sky definitely looks darker to my eye.
Our next early night sky wonder is a globular cluster in Lynx. NGC 2419, magnitude 10.4, 6.2 arc minutes in size, magnitude 17.3 is the brightest star. Wow, this baby is very distant, 268,000 light years. This may in fact be that intrepid cluster that's called the Intergalactic Wanderer. You can see it right there. I've always marveled at this particular cluster, given the fact that it's way outside the bounds of the Milky Way galaxy. It's moving between galaxies. I do believe that it is going to enter into our own galaxy, but I have to confirm that at some point in the distant future. Wow, this is a great now. I have seen this barely through a 6-inch scope of the eyepiece under really good conditions. I'm very impressed with the view we're getting, and we're not even actually pushing the sensitivity of the Rev2 system at this point. Take a moment and inhale that beauty. Coming to a galaxy here. NGC 2683, once again a galaxy in Lynx, magnitude 9.8, 8.8 by 2.5 arc minutes, a spiral of the lower B class, 23 million light years distant, and it is very nice galaxy, but well off to the left. I just centered up on Procyon, and there is something definitely amiss with the scope alignment tonight, but there's a view of our galaxy, and it is spectacular. Look at that. Once again, no dark bar, plenty of extension, huge galactic core with extended spiral arms. A real beauty. I think I'll do, since I'm spending most of my time further north than Procyon, I'll probably go ahead and synchronize to this baby. The center of somebody's universe. All right, we're on to another beautiful galaxy, NGC 2903. It's a galaxy in Leo. I think it's pretty much west of Regulus, magnitude 9, 12 by 5.6 arc minutes, so a little more oblique presentation, but about the same size as the previous galaxy. It is a spiral, but it's got a bar, plus some spiral arms, a B, so a chord barge spiral of class subset C, and if you look at the screen, what are you seeing? We're seeing the beautiful spiral arms of this galaxy presented with H2 regions. This is one beautiful galaxy. Look at those spiral arms and how well delineated. Boy, I don't know if I captured an image of this at the 12-inch settings the previous night, and I may very well have, but it didn't look like this. Otherwise, I would have been really as excited about seeing this one as I was the near edge on previously. So, whoa, what a gorgeous view. NGC 2903 in Leo. last Galaxy had a great presentation. Check this one out. 7331 Pegasus. Magnitude 9.5, 10 by 4 arc minutes. It's a class SBC spiral, 46 million light years distant. And if you really take the time to look at the image, you'll see the extension of the spiral arcs going off laterally. And a real sense of spiral. This is a beauty. Core region. Nebulosity shooting off left to right. This baby is almost presenting kind of semi-edge on. It actually reminds me a little bit of the Andromeda Galaxy seen at twice the distance. Of course, this isn't nearly as large a galaxy as the M31 is. But I can really see that there's some really nice structure in this galaxy. And if we have 100 such galaxies to image over the course of a year and that look as good as this, I am going to be